Have you ever just stopped and wondered, how did we get here? I don't just mean you and me, but all of this, our entire world. Well, today, we're going to take a trip. We're going back in time 4.5 billion years to see the absolutely spectacular, violent, and frankly, unbelievable story of how our planet was born. Okay, let's jump in.
Because that really is the central question, isn't it? Our home, this beautiful blue marble floating in space, it wasn't born peacefully. No way. It was forged in fire, hammered into shape by cosmic collisions and extreme temperatures, and hit with these planetary reset buttons that just kept wiping the slate clean. This whole story is one of destruction and then somehow rebirth.
And our story kicks off at the very beginning, in conditions that honestly looked a lot more like hell than home.
To really get this, you have to wrap your head around a truly immense timescale. So about 4.54 billion years ago, our planet comes together from a cloud of dust and rock. But just 40 million years later, a blink of an eye in cosmic time, bam, it gets slammed by a catastrophic collision that actually creates our moon. And the violence doesn't stop. For the next 600 million years, it's under a constant, relentless meteor bombardment, which, weirdly enough, is what brings the very first ingredient needed for life. I mean, can you even imagine the heat? The baby Earth was a boiling ball of liquid rock. The surface temperature was over 1,200 degrees Celsius. There was no air, no solid ground to stand on, just a glowing, endless ocean of lava.
And just when you think things couldn't get any more extreme, they do. A young planet, about the size of Mars, was on a direct collision course with Earth. Its name was Theia, and it was moving 20 times faster than a speeding bullet. The aftermath was just spectacular. The impact was so powerful, it basically liquefied both planets. Trillions of tons of molten rock were blasted into space, forming this incredible glowing red ring around Earth. Then, over the next 1,000 years or so, gravity starts to do its magic, pulling all of that rubble and debris together, and that's how we got our moon.
So, after all that incredible chaos, the planet finally starts to cool down a bit. And as it does, the key ingredients for life begin to show up from a place you would never, ever expect.
Yep, that's right. The water in our oceans, in our rivers, the very water you drink, it all came from space. For 20 million years straight, Earth was getting pelted by this massive meteor shower. And each one of those meteors carried these tiny, tiny droplets of water. Drop by drop, over millions of years, they slowly filled our oceans.
And in these brand new oceans, something absolutely incredible happened. Life appeared. It came in the form of these things called stromatolites. You can think of them as living mountains of bacteria. And they figured out this amazing trick, using sunlight to create food for themselves. But in the process, they released a byproduct, a gas that would change absolutely everything. That gas was oxygen.
But here is the wild twist. Oxygen, the very gas we depend on for every breath we take, was actually a toxic waste product back then. To the earliest forms of life, it was a deadly poison, and these little stromatolites were just relentlessly pumping it into the oceans.
So, before oxygen could ever get into the atmosphere, it first had to completely transform the oceans. It started reacting with all the iron floating around in the water, literally causing the ocean to rust. This rust then sank to the seafloor. All those massive iron ore deposits we mine today, that's them. It was only after the oceans were totally saturated with rust that oxygen could finally escape and start filling the air.
The rise of oxygen was a total game changer, no doubt. But Earth's story is one of cycles. Time and time again, our planet has gone through these profound catastrophes that have basically hit the reset button, creating whole new opportunities for whatever life managed to survive.
And here you can see the two most extreme examples. First, you have Snowball Earth, a deep freeze that lasted for 15 million years. Not enough CO2 in the atmosphere plunged the entire planet into an ice age with temperatures around -50 Celsius. Then, hundreds of millions of years later, the pendulum swings to the complete opposite extreme. Massive volcanic eruptions in Siberia create a global hothouse, leading to the single worst extinction event in history, the Great Dying.
And that number, it's just staggering. The event we call the Great Dying was so catastrophic that 95% of all life on the planet was wiped clean off of it. Life itself was pushed to the absolute brink of total annihilation.
But out of that near-total devastation, an opportunity opened up. The slate was clean, the field was wide open, and a new group of creatures evolved to dominate the planet like nothing before or since.
For 16.5 million years, the dinosaurs reigned supreme. I mean, to put that into perspective, our own species, Homo sapiens, has been around for maybe 300,000 years. The dinosaurs' time on this planet was just incredibly long and successful. They probably seemed invincible.
Well, as it turns out, nothing is invincible. And their end came not from anything on Earth, but from deep space. An asteroid, 10 kilometers across, that's bigger than Mount Everest, was heading straight for the Gulf of Mexico.
The impact was instantaneous and, well, apocalyptic. It unleashed the energy of millions of nuclear weapons all at once. The asteroid itself just vaporized on impact, and the blast wave, this plume of molten rock, it just engulfed the entire planet.
And just like that, it was done. In a geological instant, the 165-million-year reign of the dinosaurs ended in fire and ash. This created a massive power vacuum, a world of opportunity for the small, frightened creatures that had somehow survived the apocalypse.
And this right here, this is where our story really begins. The end of the dinosaurs was the beginning for our ancestors. But a whole series of improbable, almost impossible events would have to unfold for us to eventually inherit the Earth.
So how did they survive? Simple. By living underground. Our little mammal ancestors avoided the worst of the heat and the fire by burrowing deep into the earth. And because they weren't picky eaters, they could thrive while more specialized animals starved. They were the unlikely inheritors of a broken world.
And from there, the pace of our own story really picks up. Around 4 million years ago, a changing climate in Africa forced our ape-like ancestors out of the trees and onto 2 feet. Fast forward to just 70,000 years ago, and a small group of Homo sapiens begins a journey out of Africa. Their descendants would spread across the entire globe, eventually crossing a frozen land bridge from Asia into the Americas during the last ice age.
You know, this really sums the whole thing up perfectly. Our existence, the fact that we're even here to think about this story, it isn't the result of some grand plan. It's the spectacular product of a random chain of catastrophes and coincidences. Every single disaster was a step on the unbelievably unlikely path that leads directly to us.
But our planet's story is far, far from over. Everything we've just talked about is really only the first half. It leaves you wondering, what comes next? What wonders, what terrors, what strange new creatures lie ahead for our restless, creative, and sometimes violent planet? The next chapter is still to be written.